You said it, Chewie.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. And today is May the 4th be with you. Or hopefully it is. Because that's what this video is. We are celebrating May the 4th. Which means we're doing something Star Wars themed. And not just Star Wars themed, we are going to be recreating one of the iconic looks that Padme had. Which, I mean, is there any look that Padme had that wasn't iconic? I say no. Now, while I would love to do a lot of these looks, a lot of these dresses that she wore, today we're going to be focusing on just one, which is the really elegant, well, to me, it's like, I think one of her more elegant looking, yeah, I think it's like the most elegant dress that she probably had, which is the one coined usually as her Lakeside gown, which means it's like a cream base and ombres to pink and then purple. I have picked this dress because I really want to dye some fabric. And this is just the perfect project to do that with. It's actually going to be rather interesting because I have not made myself a cosplay, like a fully direct cosplay, in quite a while, like a long while. I think I just got burnt out on cosplay because it did seem like there for a while I was having not the greatest of luck. It's like I kept flubbing it up. It wouldn't fit me or something. And then it was like I was always busy with someone else's costumes. And then of course this channel kind of more evolved into historical sewing because that's always been something that's really interested me. And I felt like it was good to stretch my skill set and finally tackle harder things to make. And I've definitely advanced more with sewing, having to do historical stuff. And of course, this channel will always mostly be historical fashion, but I do want to kind of get back to my roots, my sewing roots, which was cosplay. Is cosplay? Cosplay. And I'm getting back into going to cons again. So of course, I need costumes. So yeah, this is gonna be nice, kind of having a I was gonna say having a more chill video, doing something easy, as if cosplay is ever easy. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm probably gonna like eat my words and be like, this is the hardest thing I've done. Like a whole bustle gown with like 15 yards of fabric would be easier. So, you know, who knows? Let's just go to the cutting table, talk about our fabrics, talk about I guess how we're going to tackle this cosplay. Because one skill set that cosplay gave me and that I think I'm very good at is I'm very good at kind of taking a really crazy costume and breaking it down and figuring out how it goes together. Whether I can succeed at putting it together is always the bigger question. To the cutting table! Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun! So I'm back, this time to talk about our fabrics and also deconstructing this costume. Fabrics I'm going to use is, I'm actually going to use this really nice off-white creamy faux taffeta. It's not real. I've gone with this even though I know a lot of people tend to use more of a satin because satin can be a little more flowing than taffeta, but I don't really like how satin photographs. If that makes sense, like it gets that creepy shine to it sometimes. Like it's just really hard to get a nice satin that photographs nice. I just wanted to go with the faux taffeta because I know it will be flowing enough and I know it will photograph well. I just didn't want something that was too shiny because you do see it under the chiffon and it would just look really cheap, I think, if I went with like even like a really nice crepe back satin or faux shantung. It would just I think it would just not look very nice. And then of course, loads and loads of creamy chiffon. There's nothing special about this. Now, as you may have noticed, I think they're sort of a good match with each other, which is fine, but they're too cream. Like, I am going to have to slightly yellow it. And I, of course, have a picture up of the original for us to talk about. There is another fabric I don't have out. Also, sorry again for the creaky table that I work on. So the other fabric is, the more and more I've been thinking about it, I'm going to have a slight bit of stretch fabric. I am going to be using the Dull Matte swimsuit, four-way stretch, which is a mouthful for fabric. And this is for a very specific part of the costume, which is the undersleeves. We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't have it out though, because it's going to be a pain digging it out, but just to let you guys know, that is another fabric I will be using. And I'm not going to worry about dyeing that to match the yellow because it is almost majorly under the chiffon. So now let's go ahead and look at our picture. And I'm actually going to do a cutaway so you guys can see her picture, and I'm just going to over talk that. So yes, let's take a look at the picture. So as we can see in this photograph, a lot of what you're seeing is the chiffon part, which is great. That's really beautiful. It's delicate. But if you look where the sun kind of peeks through, we can see that the underdress is a halter dress, and that there are sleeves which are not attached to the dress, but that help keep up the chiffon over. Like, the sleeves actually have a part where the dress is like pleated to them, which is fairly visible in one part, definitely. But yeah, so the sleeves do not look attached at all to the base dress, and the base dress is a halter dress, which is great. So that means let's start on the halter dress, because that's very important. We need it. I'm gonna try to make it so there's only side seams. We'll see if I can actually accomplish that. So as I said earlier with the deconstruction of the costume, I'm going to start with the underdress, which is haltered. I've got some scrap cottons. So that's what I'm going to start doing. I'm just going to start trying to kind of pin a design on her and see where it gets me, I guess. I have to keep in mind that I need it to cover me and stay covering me while still having a really low back, because that's also another key part of this dress, is the back is super, super low. I'm not going to worry about the metal part right now. Everything's going to attach to a collar. The metal piece will be made to basically just Velcro on top of the dress. I feel like that's the best way for me to accomplish that. But we'll worry about that later. Let's get her dress done first. Woohoo! Okay, I've gone ahead and I've made my mock-up. I'm pretty happy with it. I've already tested that this fits my neck comfortably, and it does, and it has enough overlap in the back for me to either do like a hook and bar or a button, or however I decide to fasten it. We have the curve here where it will attach to the neckband. I think this is a little higher than hers. I just don't know if I'd be comfortable enough cutting it any lower. And at the end of the day, I have to go with what I personally feel comfortable wearing. As you notice, to keep a nice shape to the blob, I did have to put the dart in here, the underbust dart, which is fine. And then we have a really nice swoop that goes all the way down, and I've got a pretty, I think a decently cut low enough back. Perhaps it could be lower because I think it's actually literally supposed to be down there, but again, it's kind of like what I feel comfortable with. I think it's generally, I think it looks pretty good to match hers. I'm sorry, this dress form is super stiff and just never wants to turn, which is sometimes great, but most of the time annoying. So I'm going to be a good girl, and I'm actually going to go ahead and probably draft this up as a mock-up, and off camera, I'm gonna do a mock-up and test it on myself and see how I feel about it. Because I may change my mind. I may cut the curve shorter, who knows. And I'm gonna, if it turns out well, I'll probably save this so that I can turn it into a paper pattern maybe, if I'm not too lazy. Okay, so I went ahead and did my mock-up, and the only change I had to make was I have to have a side dart or side boob dart or else it was gapping. So other than that, the pattern looks really good. The only thing I also want to try now is I re-looked at her dress last night before I went to sleep, and I realized two things. The underdress is definitely supposed to be a solid piece, so I'm going to play around and see if I can do that. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm thinking about just extending this pattern down to like a A-line type dress piece, and then maybe incorporating the whole dart all the way down the skirt. If it works, I'll show that in more detail. The other thing I realized is she does not have any actual like arm piece holding the chiffon in place. It's just pleated so that it sits properly. So I don't have to make arm pieces. It's just basically a halter top dress and then a chiffon over that must be carefully articulated into the proper shape, I think is a good way of putting it. So here is the mock-up, and I think it turned out really, really well. Sorry if I have crazy hair, by the way, which I always do here. Yeah, I'm really happy with it because having that dart go all the way down makes the dress more form-fitting, but it's very nice and flowy. Well, it's keeping its flow at the bottom, which is perfect. Obviously, it looks a little out because I haven't done the back, but I'm not concerned about the back because it was just the kind of figuring out if this experiment with darts would work out correctly on paper and fabric as it did in my head, and it does. I'm gonna go ahead and make my paper pattern for the underdress. Then we'll cut it out and get started on it. So as Sherlock is so graciously displaying the paper pattern for us, here's how it turned out. For my height, I'm 5'4", so the total like length, I think. Oh no, I don't remember. Actually, I was gonna say 39, but that's short. It's 39 from here, the waist. So it's, I don't know. But yeah, so it's a bit hard to tell since it's on the cream, but you can kind of see where the pattern goes. This is my front piece, of course, and you can see how I have my darts, my diamond dart in the front, and my little side boob dart there, and I'm cutting it on the fold. So yeah, once Sherlock decides to get off the pattern, I shall cut it. If you're wondering what we're looking at, this is fusible It's buckram. It should be interfacing, but the interfacing I have at home is, I think, too lightweight. And basically I decided that my faux taffeta is very, very light, and I want to actually put in something to stiffen up at least the back section of it. Just a little bit to help it hold up. So that's essentially what I'm doing, is I'm going to just cut some interfacing. I would definitely go with something stiff if you're using the same fabric as me, if you are doing this project. I don't know why my first assumption would be that you were going to do this project, but maybe you will. Because this will be stiff and a bit itchy, I'm going to also have to give myself a minor lining that's about this long too, so I'll just do that in a nice cotton. I'm gonna go ahead, cut out 2 of these of my webbing, or whatever you want to call it, interfacing webbing, or if you're cheap like me and don't want to go to the store, buckram, which is definitely not supposed to be used for this, but I'm gonna use it anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead. I'm gonna cut out those 2 things and then iron them onto the top. Iron them on and sew them in place. Okay, now let's talk about how we're connecting it. So this is obviously the full back piece with the interfacing on one side, and this is our cotton lining, which I took the chance to go ahead and serge the bottom here. You can't really see it, I think, because it's just white on white, but yeah, if you don't have a serger, you'll have to finish. I would suggest finishing this off though before you attach it, whether you have to do a rolled hem or whatever. And then literally we're just gonna sew right sides together, and I'm sewing just the top, this top curve, which is the top of our back piece. Once that's done, this is a curve, so you're gonna wanna clip it as close as you can all the way around. Then I'm gonna take it, then I'm gonna trim it off, of course, and I'll take it over to the ironing board, press it out, and turn it off so that our lining is covering up this side. Once I do that, I'll actually take the opportunity to serge all the way down the edges of the piece. Now that I've done all that, I'm going to go ahead and base stitch all the way along the center back seam. And the reason I'm base stitching is I don't know if I'm going to need a zipper or not yet. So this gives me the ability to add a zipper easily, and if I don't want a zipper, then I just put an actual stitch in and call it a day. Happy with the dress, it's time to talk about how I'm going to do the collar. It's fairly simple. It was just the pattern piece was just a big rectangle that fits my neck and has an overlap to it. Now what I then do to prep it though is I went ahead and, as you can see here, one side is shorter and then the other, so you know I ironed my fold there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the serger and do this and this side on the serger. You could do all 4 sides if you want to, but I didn't see a point in doing that. And then I will sew up the sides, flip it over until we're back to this again. And I'll use this longer side to attach to the front of the halter dress. And then we'll just go ahead and flip it under, like iron it, so it ends up, that serged edge ends up flipped underneath this top, and then sew it so it has a nice finish, essentially. I'm not doing any interfacing in the collar because I don't want it to be too stiff, and I don't really think it needs to be too stiff. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly go over exactly what we'll be doing. I will show you some of those steps, but I just thought this would be the easiest way to kind of get through the collar. Okay, let's talk about where we are. I do apologize. She looks a little weird because I've been having a lot of struggles pressing my darts, and I just kind of gave up after a while, but on me it looks okay. I don't know why on the dress form it looks like wonky. Maybe because maybe I fill it out a bit more than the dress form. I don't know. I'm not gonna worry about it. So especially not gonna worry about it because the chiffon is going to be covering all of the dart area anyway. And we are on a time crunch, people. So yes, I've attached the collars you saw and other changes that were made. I did have to take in, and this might be why the darts also are super wrinkled. I had to take in this one on the sides here because I was still getting gapping, and I also had to take in about 1 inch on my side seam at the top as well because I was gapping over here, so it was too big. I also lowered the back a bit more because it was like really high up. It was like way up here, and I'm okay with how low it is now. I probably could go lower, but then I lose the structure of where I put my interfacing in. I also just instead of doing the basting stitches on the back seam, I can wear this without a zipper. So I just did a regular stitch. And that's pretty much all the adjustments I made. I do apologize that she looks like a hot mess. I wish she didn't. Like I said, I think, to be honest, I think I have more filling her out up here than the dress form, which is why my darts look saggy on her. So now we're on to the chiffon portion, and you are noticing I have not dyed anything yet because I don't want to do multiple dye baths. By the way, this is my arms. One of them, not the real ones that are attached to me, but I don't want to do multiple dyings because then I'm just wasting fabric dye. So. Okay, just real quick. So the way I've cut my chiffon is I'm using the whole width of my chiffon to be my width of the front and of course back, and then I've given myself 60 inches of length, and now we are ready to dye it. Now what I have also done is I serged the bottom and top of the cut area, and of course I have the selvages so we won't get any fraying when I'm dyeing it. What I have essentially what I've decided to do for the hiding the side seams is I'm going to hide them where the ruching goes into on the sleeve part. But before we're ready to dye, we have one more thing to do, which is if you look very closely, there is along the chiffon, there is like a silky satin bias binding that's quite thick. So we're going to grab our faux taffeta again, and I'm going to go ahead and cut strips to be bias tape, and the way you do that is you cut it on the bias, which means like when your fabric, basically you cut it at an angle, a slant, which I'm going to film doing that. Let's go cut a bunch of bias because I also have to do the top bias and dye it separately to match the yellow of everything, and then do the bias that goes on the bottom of the dress to match the purple. It was a bit of a struggle, honestly, kind of figure out which way I wanted to do this dyeing, because I had almost thought about putting the bias first onto the dress and then doing the whole thing, the chiffon with the bias on it and dyeing it together, but I just don't think that's actually doable. I think that would be a really good way to mess it up. I think this way I have more control over how the fabric turns out. And yeah, this is a really uncomfortable way to be standing. So I'm gonna go cut some bias and then we're gonna get ready to dye stuff. Okay, so again, to kind of clarify on the bias. So I have my fabric, here's my selvage, and this is it. Normally this is the grain lines, like a cross. Your bias runs at a diagonal. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cut at a diagonal, and I'm gonna make them about 4 inches wide. A bunch of strips that are about 4 inches wide, cut it on the bias, and then of course we'll have to attach each one and then dye them. I'm almost wondering, I gotta look at the picture, but this is so like already creamy colored, creamy yellow. I don't know if I need to dye it. We'll have to play with swatches, but so let's go cut this out first. Okay, forget about dyeing, let's cut everything first. Hello everyone, welcome to the kitchen. Time to cook some fabric. I have my testing fabric. I have my yellow dye, which I'm not going to use a whole bottle. I want to see kind of, because it's just, I think I just need to dye a very mild yellow. I don't want like this intense sunflower yellow. My water's heated up to 200 degrees and I've got Dawn liquid detergent because they say you need to put some of that in. And of course, so I don't end up with weird colored hands, we have gloves. I guess let's just test dye these, and I'm just gonna be like, okay, like 2 cups, not 2 cups, like 2 caps worth of dye and see where that gets me. And if I don't like it, you know, we'll add a couple more caps, see where that gets me until I think I'm happy enough. I bet what's gonna happen is for the underdress, probably it'll want less dye because it's already almost a bit more yellowy, but for the chiffon, more dye. That's my guess. We'll find out in a minute. Let's go. Time it. Okay, everyone, so we've dyed everything yellow. Yay! I was wrong about something. The chiffon actually needed less time than the faux taffeta. So the faux taffeta was like perfect at 5 minutes, which I think I stated earlier. Chiffon, no. And I'm sure anyone else who's like super, maybe more way experienced with fabric dyeing was like, yeah, I told you so. But you know, this is why you always have samples of your fabric to see just what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, the chiffon was 3 minutes, I think. Yeah, like it was about 3 minutes and then it was perfect. I'm happy with the yellow that I got. There wasn't any blotchiness. It all turned out really nice. It is in the washing machine right now. Hopefully it stays nice after that. I've just followed the, you know, the box instructions. I am absolutely boiling hot now because I have to keep certain little fur butts out of the kitchen while anything is on the stove, because we don't want any big vet bills. So yeah, it was very, very hot work. Yeah, you're one of those little fur butts. Yes, you are. I am starting to think I'm not going to make my goal of May the 4th though. So I'm gonna see how much more I can get done tonight, but I may actually be splitting this video into 2 parts. And this might be it for part 1. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and call it good for part 1 because I just don't see myself getting enough work done. And I have to go to my day jobs tomorrow, so that's so exciting. So yeah, let's sign off here and I'll catch you next week where we will finish up Padme's dress. And yeah, because I do really want to do a good job on this dress, and I feel like if I keep really trying to rush her, it's not going to be a good job. But I still want to celebrate May the 4th with you guys, so I feel like this is a good compromise. We can celebrate May the 4th, and I could take some more time to do a better job on Padme. I'm ending the video here. I'll see you in part 2 where we will continue our dyeing. This time we get to do the fun dyeing, which is all the ombre stuff. And then we'll do all the foam pieces and the headgear. And then have our glorious reveal. Oh, I guess I also have to make, you know, the rest of the dress. So yeah. Yeah, there's just way too much work to do all this in like such a short amount of time. So I will see you guys next time in part 2 to finish up this beautiful dress. Bye! Say bye, Mushu. He's not gonna say bye. I love you too. All right, bye guys.